Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to unpivot some columns and create a more complex calculated column in Power BI. So we're also going to be grouping data. So let's just kind of introduce you to the equation we're going to be implementing. We're going to be putting in a calculated column that we're going to call percent of year month. And what it's going to be is it's going to be the number of avocados imported from a specific country in a specific week divided by the total avocados imported in a year-month period. So to make sense of that, if you take a look at our data, each row here represents a week of imports. And across the row, we see the number of avocados imported from each of the countries or regions. So these numbers right here are actually going to be in the numerator of our fraction there, of our percentage. And that's because there were 100,000 avocados imported from Colombia the first week of January 2021. That's exactly what that means. It's the number imported is from a specific country in a specific year. And then the bottom, see, when we are all done with it, we're going to have unpivoted those countries from headers down to a column. And so there's our numerator values. And in order to calculate this percentage a month, we're going to take that numerator value divided by all the avocados imported. So we'd start here, and if we go clear down until we get to month 2, we'd be summing up all of month 1 across country and across weeks, and that would be our denominator. So you can see we're working with data at 2 different levels. And so let's go ahead and jump into Power BI, and I'll show you how to do this. So remember that as Power BI loads, that our numerator is at a different aggregated level than our denominator, and I'm going to show you how to aggregate at 2 different levels inside a calculated field. So I'm going to click on import data from Excel. We'll grab our raw data. It invokes Power Query. I'm going to go ahead and select the first sheet, and because I want to actually transform it, I'm going to click Transform Data. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, sometimes you get a message if you've worked with stuff that your data may need to be refreshed. That doesn't apply to us here. I'm going to label this first sheet Original, because I'm just going to try to keep kind of an audit trail of things that I do. So I'm going to make a new worksheet, and then I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to name each of my sheets or my tables an action describing what I do to it. So here I'm going to add month and year. And to do that, I want to extract month and year from my date column. So I'm going to go click Add Column, pull down on date, and we'll start with year. You go year, year. You see it brings it over here. Then I'm going to come back here and click on date again and extract out month. Then I'm going to hold down Control and highlight year 2, and I'm just going to drag them back over here so they're more at the front and center. So there I've added year, month, and I'm going to need to use the year-month combination in order to aggregate up to the year-month level to a specific month. So I'm going to duplicate this. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to unpivot the countries. So I'm going to unpivot country. We could have called them region. And to do that, I'm just going to click on the first country column, drag over, hold down Shift, and click on the last country column, and come over here to transform. I'm going to unpivot those, and you can see it collapsed all the column headers down into a single column, and this is obviously going to be labeled country, and we're going to label this num imported. Okay, so we're starting to look like our solution. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this one more time. And now what I want to do is I want to group by year, month. And at this point, when I create this new table, we're going to be kind of branching off to another task. Here we have everything here in this num imported. That's going to be our numerator in our calculated column, and we just need to add another column that has this number in the numerator and the grouped year, month total imports in the denominator. So I'm going to branch off with this new duplicated table, and I'm going to use this table to aggregate up to the month level, the year, month level. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to go group by on the transform ribbon. I'm going to click advanced because I'm going to group by two variables. I need to group by year, then I need to group by month. It doesn't matter what order it is. And when I group these columns, I'm going to go from having many columns to fewer columns. In fact, I'm going to end up with 24 columns because I've got 2 years of data and there's 12 months in each year. So I'm going to call this total imports year, month. Just trying to be descriptive here. Let's just call it total month imports, understanding that we've got January in one year, January in another, and we're going to keep them separate. Then I'm going to sum these, and I'm going to sum across the num imported. So in every year, month group, I'm going to sum all the num imported values into one. So when I click OK, you'll see it shrinks, and notice we got 24 rows. So now this becomes our denominator, this column right there. Now the trick and the question is, how do I get that value in the denominator when I come over here to this table? How do I reference it? And I'm going to show you some Power BI, Power Query shenanigans here. What we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of this, they call it M, it's the M language. We're going to take advantage of this language up here. And so let me just clear out. I'm going to open up a notepad. I've got a notepad up here. It's just any basic text editor, and I'm just going to save that. So I'm going to copy this right here, and I'm going to be going through about 3 steps. The first thing I want to do is group by year, month. And this is the code that does that. The next thing I want to do is filter year and month. So essentially what I'm doing is I want to pretend like I want to place one of these values in the denominator. And this value is going to change as I go down my rows in my other table. So in order to get at one of these values, I first have to filter. So let's just say I filter 2021. It doesn't matter. I filter, we'll do March. And now I've got that filter, and here's the code that filtered that. So I'm gonna save that code. And then the next thing I do is I've got 3 values here. I need to narrow it down to 1. The number I'm interested in is this total month import. So I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna click drill down, and that actually just isolates that one number. And here's the code that isolated that number. So let's go analyze this code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these, but notice as I did these things, I have steps being added to my applied steps. So when I grouped by year, month, that was this step right here, third from the bottom. But notice that the code there references rename columns. And if I go up 1 step, it's referencing the table from the prior step. And the code here for my filter year, month, where I filtered rows, is referencing my grouped row step. And so we need to keep track of that, and we're going to leverage that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to assemble my nested function to make my denominator. So I'm going to take this code right here. Notice this is my grouping. That's a group function for a table, and it's referencing rename columns. And I'm going to take this next one. I'm going to put it down here. Now, if you think about the order that we did things in, we're going to want to group first and create that group table. But then after we're done with that, we want to select the appropriate rows. And so what that means is I want to get rid of grouped rows here. That grouped rows points to my grouped table. And my grouped table was formed by this code here. So I'm going to cut that and paste it in place of that group rows. Now, if you take a look here, it's when we drill down, it's referencing the filtered rows, and this would be the filtered rows. We use the select rows function to filter, but all this would be the same as the filtered rows table. And so I'm going to basically treat that as all this code down here. So that means I need to take the rest of this code. I'm just going to tack it on the end. What that does is it helps me index into a specific place in these filtered rows, and that's my total month imports column. But notice, remember, we filtered on a specific year and a specific month, and we want to make that generic. So every place, the way we reference the month column is we're just going to do it inside square brackets like this. So every place we have that 3, we're going to replace it with month. Every place we have the 2021, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. We have a 2021 there. We're going to replace it with year. There's one other place here. So then I've assembled kind of this nested formula, and I'm going to copy that. And remember, that's my code for the denominator. I'm going to come back here to my unpivot country, and then I want to add a new column, which I can do with add column, custom column. We're going to call this % of year month. And we'll just start with the denominator first. So sometimes I like to take this in steps. You notice we have an error here, and sometimes it's easy to, I got rid of an extra square bracket. Notice I got a square bracket opening there, a square bracket opening there, that one gets closed there. There's one open there, and a square bracket closes there, so I got to add one more square bracket there. So once I do that, I'm going to click OK, and I'm just doing this to test it, and you can see that I just want to kind of verify that it's doing the right thing. Notice my values are all the same all through the first month. Right here on this row, I enter the second month of 2021 and my value changes. So that seems to be at the right level. But that's not what I wanted. I wanted that to be in the denominator. And so I'm going to double click on this added custom again, and now I'm going to put the numerator in here, which is just the number imported column, whatever number is on the row in num imported, and I'm going to divide by that. So now I got my numerator and my denominator, which we had to do a bunch of aggregation and filtering to get to the number in the aggregated table. I click OK. Notice that's looking more like a percentage. I'm going to change it to actually be a percentage. I click on that little icon to change the data type and click on percentage. There we go. Now, at this point, this is the table that I'm interested in. And what I really should have done is I should have called this the final table. I'm going to duplicate it. I really should have duplicated this table before, so if I went back and I undid all these, it looked like that. And so I would have duplicated it here so I can maintain my audit trail and then added the calculated column to final, but you get the idea. So at this point I can go home and I can close and apply, and it's going to load it inside Power BI. And again, let's just validate that it makes sense, that these numbers were aggregated right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of a pivot table right here in Power BI. I'm going to add this matrix. And then I'm going to go to my final table. And I'm going to split it out by date. Notice it's going to put the date right here. I've got year right there. I could expand it out to quarters and then month. But then I'm going to take percent of year and drag it down to values. And if I take country and drag it to columns, it'll go across the top. Let's open it up a little. You can kind of see it right here. If we go across any of the month levels, we're going to see 1. And if I'm talking about the percentage of avocados that were shipped from a country in a specific week over all the avocados we received in the month, they should all add up over to be 100% over 1 month. So we could also do something like this. We could say, let's filter, and let's go down to month. And we'll just filter March. And come down to year. Change it to basic filtering. And filter 2021. And you'll see right there that since we filtered all the data, they all add up to be 100%. So at that point, we're pretty confident that we did it right, that we achieved what we set out to do with our fraction. So hopefully that was helpful. A lot of power in Power Query and using the M scripting language. Have fun.